All right, it is 6 o'clock, so we'll call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, next item on the agenda is adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So move, Goodburn.
Second, Owsley.
All right, all in favor of adoption of the agenda, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Item 1.04, approval of minutes, special public comment meeting, December 13th, 2021. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved, Hembry.
Second?
Second, Boyd Nerona.
All right, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion to approve minutes from the special meeting passed 7-0. Item 1.5, approval of minutes, regular meeting, December 13th, 2021. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved, Owsley.
Second?
Second, Borgman.
All right, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion passes 7-0 to approve minutes of regular meeting. Item 1.06, approval of minutes, special meeting, January 3rd, 2022. Motion to approve?
Move approval, Goodburn.
Thank you. Second?
Second, Owsley. Oh, sorry.
Okay, second, Hembry?
Yep.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 And any opposed? Motion passes 7-0 to approve minutes of special meeting. 1.07, approval of minutes, special meeting, January 10th, 2022, negotiations.
Move to approve, Borgman.
Thank you. Second?
Owsley.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you. Opposed? All right, motion to approve minutes from January 10, approve 7-0, or pass 7-0. Item 1.08, approval of minutes, special public comment meeting, January 10, 2022. Motion to approve?
Goodburn.
Second?
Owsley.
All right, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, motion to approve minutes from January 10, pass 7-0. Item 1.09, approval of minutes, regular meeting, January 10, 2022. Do I have a motion?
So move, Borgman.
Thank you. Second?
Owsley. Oh, sorry.
Second, Goodburn?
Hembry.
Hembry.
Oh, Hembry. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Oppose? Okay. Motion to approve minutes from January 10, pass 7-0. All right, we are now on to communication items. 2.01, the superintendent report. Dr. Hubbard.
Thank you, President Sinclair. So I'm going to start with pre-K and kindergarten enrollment is beginning soon. Online enrollment opens at 8 a.m. on Friday, February the 4th. We will include a link in the recap to online enrollment where families can complete applications and reserve a spot. Please note that the application must be completed on a desktop or laptop computer or a tablet. It will not work on mobile phones. Those without access to enroll online are encouraged to contact their area school for kindergarten. Pre-K families are encouraged to call the early childhood office, and we'll include these contacts in the recap. Opportunities will be held in following weeks for students and families to connect with school staff and learn more about their future school experience. We also encourage anyone in the district to share this information with any families who have children who will be 4 or 5 on or before August 31st of this school year. We are so excited to welcome new students to the Shawnee Mission School District. Signature Program Open House. Last Thursday, middle school and high school students and their families attended a Signature Program Open House here at the Center for Academic Achievement. They were able to tour our state-of-the-art classrooms, hear from our teachers and students, and learn about our specialized program for high school students, including animation and game design, biotechnology, culinary arts, and commercial baking, engineering, health science, and Project Blue Eagle, the district's fire science, EMS, and law enforcement program. We will include a link in the recap for more information and encourage interested families and students to connect with their high school counselors as students develop their individual high school experience. Battle of the Books. I want to congratulate our middle school students who put their reading-related knowledge to the test in Battle of the Books competition. Participants were asked trivia questions based on 10 books from this year's list of William Allen White's Children's Book Award nominees. This year, Hawker Grove Middle School was declared the champion, defending a 3-year winning streak. Well done to all their students for reading dedication and teamwork. KMEA State Performers. We are proud of all of our student musicians who will be representing the Shawnee Mission School District in all state ensembles. These students took part in rigorous auditions to ultimately be invited to be a part of the Kansas Music Educators Association in-service workshop. We'll share a link in the recap highlighting all who will perform in all-state orchestra, band, jazz band, and choir. Today officially marks the beginning of Kindness Week in the Shawnee Mission School District. This is a time where all students and staff members dedicate time to focus on creating a culture of kindness. This week is held with the goal of inspiring acts not only during this week, but every day of the year. Every school will be participating. Some will participate by writing kind notes or creating artwork about the topic. Some will integrate the topic into classroom lessons or school service projects. This week supports our strategic plan objective of developing student interpersonal skills and our belief that every individual has inherent worth and deserves to be valued and celebrated. I wish all of us a happy and meaningful Kindness Week. R&D Forum promo. One of our district's biggest celebrations of the year is the Research and Development Forum. This year will be the 60th annual R&D Forum in Shawnee Mission. The event this spring will include a student showcase and the next great idea pitch competition. This contest invites student entrepreneurs to share their ideas for solving a problem, and they all have a chance to win prizes to advance their ideas. Interested students are encouraged and invited to attend an information session on WebEx on Thursday, January the 27th. We'll include a link in the recap to anyone who wants to learn more and join this information session. As part of the consent agenda tonight, you will see an item around enrollment study and boundary study. This information helps the district make decisions about budgeting, ensuring that buildings are being used efficiently, and distributing students equitably across the district. We are recommending an enrollment study that will project enrollment for the next 5 school years. Our last study was completed approximately 3 years ago. However, due to the changes related to COVID-19, we are requesting a new study. After the enrollment study, RSP, the firm that would be conducting the study, would give a full report to the board regarding projected enrollment and share any schools that should be included in an elementary boundary study. We will learn a lot from the enrollment study, but at this time, there are at least 2 factors that are clear. Briarwood Elementary is far over capacity, and Tomahawk Elementary, which is projected to open in August 2025, is being rebuilt to accommodate additional students. The enrollment study would provide us additional information on whether we should include other elementary schools in the boundary discussion. A full timeline of the boundary committee work can be located in the report under the agenda item. We anticipate the enrollment study to be complete and back to the board in early spring. And that concludes my superintendent report.
All right, thank you, Dr. Hubbard. Brings us to 2.2, board reports. And we are in somewhat of a little bit of transition on some of these board committees. So I believe if we start with the SMAC report, would that still
I have
Ms.
handed
Boardman?
the baton over to Ms. Hembry, but I believe it's been so soon that Ms. Hembry has not had a chance to truly connect with SMAC, so
No
perhaps
SMAC
at the
PTA
next
news
meeting?
from me yet.
Okay. And then you are continuing to serve on SMAF. Thank you. Is there any SMAF update?
Kim just wanted me to let everyone know that the Leadership Shawnee Mission Program is accepting nominations of students right now. So if there's any educators out there who would like to nominate, it is current sophomores or juniors. This is the summer leadership program that the Shawnee Mission Education Foundation operates. More information is on the foundation website, but we really do value the role of our educators in helping to identify students who should be participating.
Thank you. The Kansas Association of School Boards Board of Directors, Mr. Stratton, do you have any updates?
Yes, I do. I attended the first meeting of the year, which was January 12th in Topeka. There were several new board members on the KASB board because of the election that took place back in November, as well as other changes within leadership within boards. So we got to know some of those folks. This was Dr. Brian Jordan's first meeting as the executive director of the Kansas Association of School Boards. So we heard reports from him. There was also a pretty lengthy legislative update by Mark Tolman because of the legislative session beginning. And a reminder that folks can watch his updates daily on their Facebook Live program. It's pretty informative. And then lastly, we had a presentation from Frank Henderson, who's the president-elect of the National School Board Association, also a member of the Seaman School District Board in Topeka. And he shared several updates, including the continued transitions that are going on in leadership and also some of the effects of the letter that was presented to the Attorney General Merrick Garland, to which created a little stir, and several of the state school boards have withdrawn their membership. So this continues to be something that they're working through. I believe Missouri has chosen not to be part of the National School Board Association, one of those states that stepped out. So anyway, that's the update so far. There's a lot going on, and then our next meeting is March 26th, and that will be in Goodland, Kansas.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you very much. Next is the Kansas Association of School Boards Legislative Committee, and Ms. Owsley, you and I have kind of transitioning in that piece. I could probably...
Yeah, we haven't had a meeting, and I can...
Haven't had a meeting.
Yep.
I think I just would add on to Mr. Stratton's comment about being able to find information from KASB's advocacy team who facilitates the legislative committee. You can find information on what's happening in the legislative session on their Facebook Live, a little recap. It's always under 5-10 minutes. And then they post regularly in terms of a number of different blogs. Again, that can be found on the website. And then we also should be everyone should be receiving an email update as well. All right. That brings us to the Policy Review Committee. Ms. Goodburn?
You have 5 policies tonight that are on second reads: 7.02, 7.03, 04, 05, and 06 tonight that are second reads.
Okay. Thank you. And then Finance and Facilities. Mr. Stratton?
Yes, the
Board
next
report.
meeting of the Finance and Facilities Committee is February 17th, and later this week, board members on our board will each receive an email asking for them to consider the appointment or reappointment of their designee to that committee. And so we'll have that out in time so that that can be either affirmed or changed in time for our February 17th meeting.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your board reports. And that brings us to 2.3, Petty Cash Summary. Dr. Hubbard?
Yes, I'm actually going to turn it over to Russell Knapp.
Well, good evening. Actually, I can address the next 3 items, if you don't mind.
That'd be great. Thank you.
All right. The 2.03 is a petty cash report, and the 2.04 is student activity report. Those are both semi-annual reports that we present to the board, once in January and once in July. Petty cash gets very little activity. The high schools usually use that just for their cash money for their gate receipt boxes. The student activity report reports out the expenditures for the building funds, so it'd be your gate receipts for activities and your clubs, your student clubs. So that's those 2 funds is where the money runs through those. 2.05, the board financial report. This is the December board financial report and also the SR2 through December 31st. So that represents half of the fiscal year. At this time, I'm happy to report that none of our expenditure lines are trending to be over budget at this time, but we'll continue to monitor it through the second half of this fiscal year. That concludes my financial report, and if you have any questions, be glad to ask them.
Okay. I will look up and down the dais here to see, do we have any questions about any of these three financial reports from 2.3 to 2.5? Anyone? Mr. Stratton, do you have any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Okay. I have one quick one in the ESSER expenditures. Each elementary, middle, and high school team was able to allocate $675,000 to kind of be used at particular grade levels. And those, those expenditures kind of stayed on target with each of those plans and use it,
Those are being guided by the committee work that was done last spring at each level. They've tended to focus around catch-up from the pandemic, so things like intervention and support materials, but and then also the PLC conference. So the short answer to your question is yes, they've been helpful and they've kept on target.
I would just also add that those particular dollars of the ESSER money are very specific to learning recovery and go directly into the classroom. A very large portion of them are directly into the classroom, or to kids specifically for recovery in summer school and e-school, where kids can get recovery for no cost, at least this past summer, and probably again this next summer.
Okay. And then the other point of clarification then, just, I think we've touched on this before, the indoor air quality, that is something that is not necessarily, the focusing on a safe learning environment is something that the district has been maintaining. We are just budgeting those efforts out of a different fund.
Correct. So while we didn't spend a large number of ESSER dollars for HVAC, we are still spending a large percent of capital outlay there, as well as there's a line item in the bond, which I believe is $24 million for lighting and HVAC upgrades. And I know that during the ESSER report, Russ is going to talk a little bit more about that. And Mr. Clubb is here for questions as we talk about the ESSER funds as well.
Great. Thank you. Okay. And all right, so I will move us on to the discussion items. 3.1, Priority 1 Annual Review. Dr. Hubbard?
Yes, thank you. So I have Dr. Schumacher, who's the Associate Superintendent of Human Resources, and Ms. Erin Eason, who's the National Director of Clinical Consulting Practice from CBIZ, to talk about the Priority 1 Year 4 Annual Review.
Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Are we going to bring up that PowerPoint?
Sheriff, this is the mitigation plan, not the Priority 1.
Sheriff is filling in here for us tonight for Terry Wintering, so. Sorry about that.
I think it's the one to the right. No, the next one over.
There we go. Thank you. Okay.
Perfect.
Appreciate it.
Thank you
Good
so
teamwork.
much. All right, so good evening again. Thank you for providing us some time to report to you some information about the Priority 1 Health Clinic. As you know, 5 years ago, the district opened the Priority 1 Health Clinic here at the Center for Academic Achievement. This was and remains a very innovative approach in employee wellness, especially in the K-12 setting. The clinic is managed by Marathon Health, and the SMSD is supported by our broker, CBIZ, in the day-to-day operations of the clinic, the decision-making of the clinic, and then the assessment of its success. At its inception, Priority 1 was started in an effort to improve the health of district staff members and their eligible spouses and dependents. Over the course of the last 5 years, we've had some tremendous success in our clinic and have been fortunate to be able to add necessary services over the course of those 5 years. As mentioned previously, tonight I'm joined by Erin Eason. Erin is that National Director of Clinical Consulting Practice at CBIZ. And at this point, I'm going to throw it to her to take over the presentation.
Thank you, everyone, for having me tonight. So just to kind of level set, this is our year 4 annual review, and our year runs a clinic year, so it's based upon our original opening date. And so our clinic year for year 4 was August 1st of 2020 through July 31st of 2021. We do our assessment a little bit later as we go through to make sure that we're capturing, and when we do claims review, that we're capturing run-out claims and getting a complete picture of the 12-month period that the clinic year represents. So this first slide here just tells you a little bit of the story that Dr. Schumacher was referencing. It's, from my perspective, really important that a health center evolves with the needs of the population. And obviously, from a health standpoint, throughout the last 4 years, but certainly in the last 2, the health needs of your population have evolved substantially. And I'm really proud that you've been able to work within the Priority 1 Health Center and your partnership with Marathon Health to hopefully meet people where they need to be met. So just as a reference, we opened in August of 2017. Within the first year, we made the decision that we needed additional provider hours, and so 20 nurse practitioner hours were added to our original staffing model. You can see in March of 2020, the COVID-19 response began within the health center, and immediately following that, Marathon Health responded by rolling out virtual care as well as mail order medications to be able to still continue to serve your population even when they weren't able to see them in person. Thankfully, those additions have been able to stay with us and continue, and have really kind of allowed for an expansion of services, making the health center more convenient, even more convenient to your staff and their families. In September of 2020, we made the recommendation, and you all made the decision to add behavioral health services, and we hired a licensed clinical social worker to provide counseling to employees and their family members on the plan. And in January of the following year, we increased the hours based on need. We've continued to see a lot of interest and growth within that service, and added more hours based on our recommendation and your acceptance in August of last year. And then you can see that just recently we also have had the opportunity to roll out some COVID-19 vaccinations. So hopefully we've seen that the Priority 1 Health Center has been an opportunity to augment or assist in your COVID-19 mitigation strategies. So taking a look at participation, you can see the lighter green in that top left grid represent years 1, 2, and 3. It's important to note as you look at those numbers that even though there is a slight decrease, this is the middle of the COVID response at the end of year 3, and then obviously we're still in the middle of it, but from the context of the environment throughout year 4. So while we did see a slight decrease in total unique patients in this year 4, we still managed to see more than 40% of your employees, more than 20% of the spouses on your plan, and just shy of 20% of children on the plan. For overall, just shy of 1,400 unique individuals were seen and treated within the Priority 1 Health Center. About just under 30% of those individuals were new, and then the remaining 70% were established. We watch that number to make sure that not only are we bringing new people in as you hire them, of which there's been a lot of hiring and new hires that come onto the plan, that we also are maintaining those relationships and continuing to see established patients. And then the bottom right is just a breakdown, and I'm not going to go through each of the numbers, but just for your, as we look at strategy and how to determine how to market, how to communicate with folks, we look at who's utilizing the health center and we look at that in the context of your population as a whole. So each of those lines under male and female are their own individual lines. So for example, when I look at the 45 to 54-year-old female group, of those eligible people that are female and in that age range, we are seeing 40% of them in the health center. So just kind of look through that, and you know, obviously that 45 and up range. Unfortunately, for those of us in that range, that's when you start to see chronic conditions start to show themselves. And it's really important that we make sure we're seeing those folks in the health center. We know that we can help them. And so it's nice to see that our largest population is in that age range. So there were just over 5,400 scheduled appointments, and 4,500 of them were kept. So that was a 2% no-show rate, which is exceptionally low. That means your folks are calling and letting folks know, hey, I'm not going to be able to make it, and then that opens up an appointment slot for their peers or family members. There were 14% canceled. In this world of COVID, people can't always get away. Or they can't make it in, and so none of those are of particular concern, but it's something that we keep an eye on. You can see the breakdown. 73% of the appointments were for providers, 11% were for medical providers, 11% were for our behavioral health counselor, 1% is work-related services, and 15% were medical assistant appointments. 10% of our visits were for new patients. Most of those convert over and become established patients in addition to the previously established patients. And folks had, on average, 2.8 visits per person, which is a really nice number. It shows that people are likely viewing priority 1 as their medical home. 3 and above is what we kind of target, so we're getting there. Of the visits that were conducted, just shy of 2,200 had a coaching element embedded in them, so working on those chronic conditions, lifestyle management. There were 265 preventive physicals. That is the highest in my book of business. Your summers are full of annual physicals, which is what we want and how we market to our school districts, but your folks really have adopted that, and it's an exciting thing to see. 2,300 of the 4,500 appointments were telephonic or video visits. So people, again, are continuing to utilize virtual visits, though we are seeing a transition into more in person lately. Then at the bottom, you can also see the breakdown of injury. Injury appointments are based on a work-related injury. That's the context of those. So 37 initial injuries. Of those, 20 continued to follow up within the health center. And then there were 496 behavioral health visits during this period. Actually, that 1.7 is not correct. Sorry, I just caught that error. It's actually 7.1 visits. It's flipped. 7.1 average visits per person. We had 16, in this period of time, we had 69 unique patients. And while in the scope of your population that number doesn't seem huge, we went and looked at the total number of community outpatient behavioral health claims on your plan in the last 12 months. So I wasn't able to get the data exactly matched up to this period, but for a rolling 12-month period, you had 38 claimants in your community. So you had 69 in the health center and 38 in the community. We're seeing a lot of people that probably would not have been seen had they not had the opportunity to leverage the Priority 1 Health Center. It's something that I'm proud to be a part of when we hear the stories of just how much our providers are able to help and kind of complete the entirety of a person's healthcare needs, not just their physical well-being. It's pretty impressive. I'm not going to go through this slide in a ton of detail, but I did want you to see how we're looking and tracking to make sure that we're not missing something from a utilization standpoint. While your overall participation is slightly down from year 4, which had a portion of the year in which there was not a COVID response occurring, what you can see here, and really I would kind of pay attention to the column on the far right, you can see that in the change between years 3 to year 4, Between October and March, we were down. But as April rolled around, we started to see a drastic increase in utilization within the Priority 1 Health Center. And ultimately, that got us to a point that we were fairly even in terms of total kept visits from the prior year. So we continue to monitor the impact of COVID-19, how we need to meet people where they are. If what we're doing isn't working, how do we shift and make sure that it is?
Okay, so thanks, Erin. I'm going to take these next couple slides and talk about the post-visit survey. One of the things that we pride ourselves on about our clinic is that it should be a different experience compared to your community physician or that clinic. Our appointments are on time, for an example. We're nimble enough to allow for urgent issues and try to be flexible with work schedules and meeting appointment needs. Our providers also take pride in spending time with the appointment and, as Erin mentioned, managing that whole patient. You can clearly see the comments on slide 6. I'm just going to pull out a couple to try to emphasize that point. 97.3% indicated the available appointment times were convenient for them. 99.7% indicated they were likely or very likely to use the health center again. And then there towards the top, 87.3% said they waited 0 to 5 minutes beyond their original appointment time. 97.7% waited less than 10 minutes. And I am going to come back to that stat here in a second to emphasize a different point. But moving on to slide 7, again, some more kind of free-form comments. And of course, we did get permission to use these comments from the employees who made them. I know it's kind of hard to read on this slide, but one statement says, Amy and Amanda were extremely kind and very professional. I will come back because of the great care and compassion I received today. Another one, Dr. Sakyu, who is one of our primary care physicians, is always friendly and takes time to get to know me. I feel comfortable talking with her, and she's provided excellent care during each visit. My lab results were reported back to me the very next day, and Dr. Sakyu personally made that phone call. So again, just some wonderful comments. I'll take this time to mention a consent item that you'll consider later in the agenda. It's item 5.13, and it asks you to consider approving us to add an additional medical assistant to the clinic. And you'll see this in that report, but the rationale in doing so is that over the years, as both Erin and I have mentioned, we've added services to the clinic and have seen that 41% increase in provider appointments, which we all, I think, acknowledge is fantastic. But during that time, we haven't kept up with the support staff. So in looking at these survey results, while they're fantastic and we're very happy about our service, our standard is that of excellence. And so I'll point you back to that 87.3%. While it's great, I mean, I think many clinics would be super happy about that, and we are too. We expect a little bit more. And so in reading that action item or consent item, we do mention a couple comments that we get of staff members wishing we would answer the phone a little bit quicker or respond a little bit quicker. And so that additional medical assistant will be able to help us provide that. So just wanted to add that piece as well. So Erin, back to you.
So these next few slides just focus on some of the financial components of the health center for this year. So the first is an estimated employee savings, and I'm going to caveat this slide as it's lower than prior years, and that's because during the emergency period of COVID-19, and for this entire period, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Kansas City, as well as all other insurers during this period, allowed for telehealth or virtual visits to be provided to individuals regardless of their plan type at no cost. So in the community they were free, and in the health center they were free regardless of your plan. And so free and free, there's not going to be a savings associated. And as you recall, there were over 2,000 visits within that occurred virtually. So just a little bit of context. For those who enrolled in your qualified health plan with an HSA, there were 290 in-person non-preventive visits. Those individuals paid $30 in the health center. We assume in the community that they would have gone to another primary care setting. Average cost for a primary care visit is $115. And so the total that they spent in the health center versus what they would have spent in the community is less that is $24,650. Similar methodology for the HMO and PPO plan members. Again, $0 health center fee. It's free for PPO and HMO plan members. $40 copay is what we're using as a comparison. So they would have paid $16,520 in the community. They paid nothing in the health center, and so that's a total of $41,170 divided by the total number of unique patients. That's an average employee patients. That's an average of $27 per person. So since the healthcare center opened, there's been an estimated employee savings of over $300,000. And then looking at this last slide, and I'm going to caveat this, that COVID-19 absolutely had an impact in how your health plan performed. In some cases and for some individuals, it obviously had a much more substantial impact, but overall, in the community specifically, and very slightly in priority one, we saw a reduction in access of care. So I'm going to say that because there isn't a magic way that we calculate return on investment that can completely, pull out the COVID-19 response. There might be over time as we have an opportunity to continue to study it, but even actuaries within CBIZ, within Blue KC, there's been variance in an attributed percentage to COVID-19. And so at this point, we recognize that there's likely other factors that play into this, but we also know that we were able to continue to serve the majority of folks during the period of time that COVID-19 has continued to impact us. That said, our expenses in year 4 were just over $1.4 million. That's about just shy of $68,000 under budget. We saw, and we're going to get into a little bit more detail on the next slide, we saw cost avoidance in medical and pharmacy claims of just over $7.2 million, work comp avoidance of $68,000, so $7.3 million versus the expense of $1.4 is $5.8 million in return on investment, which is a 5-to-1. So for every $1 spent, $5 were avoided, and that word avoided is really important, and we're going to talk about it on the next slide. Since the health center opened, you have a 3.1-to-1 return on investment. So just to orient you to this very busy slide, the top kind of faded out line shows you your overall per member per month claims over the period of time that the health center has been open, and then 1 year prior. So in this last year, your PMPM was $533. That's overall per member per month. When we look at return on investment, we pull out high-cost claimants over $50,000, and we do that because those individuals are accessing a level of care that the healthcare center could never provide and should never provide. Those are individuals who have incredibly complex or acute conditions like cancers or traumatic injuries, and those are being treated and managed in the community as they should be. So of the population, those claimants represent 99 unique individuals, and the remaining 3,450 individuals are included in the green bar at the bottom. And so the green bar at the bottom is a representative of your PMPM less your high-cost claimants. So you can see year over year, you've continued to see a decline in that number. That's counter to what we see from a trend standpoint. We at CBIZ use a 7.3% blended trend, and that's what you can see in that dotted line, is what we would have expected your costs to be if they aligned to trend. So the delta between the trend line and the green line is where your return on investment lies. As I mentioned, There are other factors that can influence your overall PMPM. We account for those in our trend, but the one thing that we're not right now able to account for is COVID-19 response. So that's just represented, you're still at a 7.3 trend. If you make plan design changes that are substantial and reduce your trend, we reduce that. We want to make sure that we're accurately representing the difference that the health center makes versus plan design changes. Really, that's the major difference, is plan design changes. So that's an explanation. The thing that I mentioned before, the word cost avoidance and the importance of that, is that, as you can see, a very small number of individuals can have an enormous impact on your health plan, on the costs and the claims and ultimately the premiums that are set. The health center at its most successful can work to offset those exorbitant costs to help reduce the amount of plan design changes that have to be passed on to manage them. So I wish we would be able to eliminate high-cost claimants. That certainly, as we work long-term, as we manage health conditions, we hope that we will eliminate some. But there are conditions that are, unfortunately, not controllable, and those are going to occur. And our goal is really to control what is controllable within that majority of your population, large majority of your population, so that those things that are outside of the control of the plan and of the individual can be absorbed without having a detrimental effect to the overall plan performance.
Okay, so a lot of information there. Appreciate your time, and at this point, we'll take any questions you may have.
All right, thank you for that very, very thorough and data-informed report. Before we go to questions maybe from board members, can you stay for a little bit, Ms. Eason?
Absolutely.
Yes. Dr. Hubbard, did you have any other comments you want to add?
I think that I would just add what a huge benefit this is to our staff district-wide. And I mean, I personally use the clinic, and as do my children, so it's been a great resource for us, especially even prior to the pandemic, but during the pandemic and since then. So just a personal testimony, it's great. And I know there are other people in this room that use the clinic regularly as well. So just thankful I'm thankful that I personally have it, and I'm thankful that our employees have access to it.
Okay. Great. Thank you. So we're going to take some questions. I'm going to start to my right, and then we'll move down. So Ms. Goodburn, do you want to start? And then we'll work our way down with
Nothing
questions.
from me, but thank you for this presentation.
Okay. Ms. Humbry?
Just a big thank you. I really appreciated seeing the evolution over time and knowing that it helps understand that consent item that we're hearing tonight. I really appreciated that history. My only question was around whether there's things that we started doing because of COVID that we think we'll keep doing. I know like telehealth and virtual visits have been very much appreciated. I don't know if that's something that will continue.
Absolutely. I mean, particularly, it's something, to be honest with you, we had challenged Marathon Health, both as an organization and as a consultant, to say, can you bring this to the table? I work with a lot of school districts and recognize that the challenge of getting away from work it's undeniable in the setting that most of your folks work. And so, unfortunately, it came as a result of something really challenging, but long-term, it's not going away. And we have shifted the way that we've communicated about it to just recognize, hey, this is an opportunity for you. If you can't get away, you can access care. And a lot of people are continuing to utilize those services. Behavioral health is also something that we're finding people often prefer, even when they could be seen in person and even have the time. They can, for some people, it allows them to be in their own personal place and have that comfort level that allows them to have a more productive session. And then we also rolled out mail order medications. We sort of shifted back and forth, but I think we're going to continue that as well. And that, again, it eliminates, it's managed, so it's not just a blank check of a prescription forever and ever. It's managed so that they have a smaller number of refills than perhaps in the community. Maybe it's 6 months, where in the community you might not actually have an end date on some of your medications, which we don't want. We want people coming back in, checking in, making sure that it's working. But it eliminates the need for people to come in every 3 months, so that they're able to get their medications for a longer period of time.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely.
All right, Ms. Boyd-Norona.
Yes, I don't have a question, but as a former professor of health information management, it does my heart good to hear that you're practicing the concept of meeting people where they are and managing the whole patient. Those few words speaks volumes to me, being a professor in this realm. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, that gives us to Ms. Borgman.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that great presentation. I really appreciate it. I had a couple questions. First and foremost, mental health is such a big issue for everybody right now. And we need to make sure we're taking care of our employees, especially with mental health. And I just want to make sure that we are able to meet the needs of our employees with their mental health appointments. Is there a backlog? Is there a long wait time to get in to see a mental health professional?
Yeah, so you're asking the same questions we're asking literally on a weekly basis and monitoring. There are currently, as of our last meeting, just over 20 people on the waiting list, which sounds like a lot. However, our health center has a couple of things that occur. If there is an acute need or an emergent need, people are prioritized and they are given immediate care. If they, and we're monitoring how long they're staying on the waiting list. So presence on the waiting list means they were written down on the waiting list because on the day that they called, they couldn't have an appointment within a month or some reasonable amount of time for behavioral health. We're watching to see what the average length on the waiting list is to help us make some recommendations. Do we need to add more hours? The challenge with behavioral health is that it is not a one and done type of a visit or an engagement with a provider. You're engaging for months. And so once you engage, the provider then reserves time for you on a cadence. And so that you're never in a position where you've engaged and then you don't have your therapy appointment or your counseling appointment. So it's complex. And we don't want to continue to just add hours and then get to a point where we're not utilizing those hours. At the same time, we want to make sure that our waiting list is well managed. And so we're working with Marathon to make sure that we are A, monitoring, and then B, they're coming back to us with some recommendations of what's a reasonable amount of time to be on the waiting list. If we gut check and feel that's reasonable, we'll move forward. If we don't, then we'll challenge back and ask for other solutions. As well as just on average, what an average time frame between phone call to appointment should be. For example, with medical services, it's same day, next day availability. That's our expectation. That's not a reasonable expectation for behavioral health. You would be overstaffed if you were able to provide that on a consistent basis. So it's a challenge. We're watching it. We're trying to make sure that we're sort of making the right decision for the sort of perfect threshold, but it's an evolution. And I mentioned that if somebody calls in with an emergent issue, they are seen, that they are prioritized, they are seen. If it is not emergent and they're being put on the waiting list, in addition to being put on the waiting list, they are offered the opportunity to be connected with the EAP that the district provides, as well as Blue KC's offerings, whether they're community providers or mindful. So they are being given solutions. A lot of them are then electing to stay on the waiting list for when an appointment opens back up.
Aaron, if I could just add a couple things. So Aaron did a nice job answering that, of course, but you did approve that new EAP a couple months ago, and with that, we added 6 sessions rather than just the 3, and we were having discussions with CBIZ and Marathon, making sure that we had other supports for our staff outside of that behavioral health. So that's one piece, excuse me. And then Dr. Sacku also is an expert in the field, and so she is able to connect with our staff members with community resources as well. So we've been asking the exact same questions, and it's a concern of ours as well. But we have that layered approach we feel like supports our staff in a very positive way.
Thank you. And I was pleased to hear that kind of, sort of in the interim to kind of fill the gap, I guess, they are being directed to some other resources, which is super important. But I'm just wondering if this is something, that we really do need to take a serious look at. I mean, 20 employees that are needing mental health services that we can't, help them right now is obviously, that's a concern and a worry. And I know you feel that, and I appreciate you keeping an eye on it. But that would definitely be something that me personally, I would love for us to really make sure that, if we need to help in this capacity, help our employees, I would really like us to make sure we're doing what we need to do to support mental wellness amongst our employees. So
It's a point well taken, and absolutely, we'll keep it in our forethought, and if we need to, we'll make another recommendation for sure.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Erin.
Absolutely.
All right, Ms. Ousley?
Thank you. My question is with regards to reaching out to other employees who aren't participating or marketing it, so to speak. Do we know, are we able to identify the employees who are likely seeing another practice that just isn't the clinic, so they have their own primary care physician that they see, and so they're there, but then there's a pool of employees that perhaps is not utilizing any facility or any care, and so that would be the pool of folks that you would want to be like really encouraging or giving them the information they need, especially during stressful times. Sometimes it's hard for people to prioritize their own health care, and so they don't do it because the last 2 years have been crazy, right? So if you've got 4,000 things to do, maybe getting to the doctor to get a well visited is not on your list of things. But are we able to figure out who that is? And if we are we what are we doing to bring them in?
So Marathon has a pretty unique marketing process where they evaluate of your eligible population how many people have never been to Priority 1, how many people have been to Priority 1, but it's been X number of months. And then they tailor marketing and communication, so emails, to those individuals that are based upon, like, we haven't seen you, it's been a long time, or, hey, this is a service we want to make sure you know about, just based on that. So they're targeting individuals who haven't accessed the health center, or who haven't accessed it in different periods of time. They're not currently looking at whether care is established elsewhere in the model of that. It's really looking at utilization inside. I think that's an interesting question, so I'll bring that back to our Marathon Health reps. We don't have a way we're not ever given identified information. The district is never given identified information, and so we are not able to target people directly or individually. The other thing that we did is last year, we issued a clinic interest survey. That's just the title we give it. It's something that we manage and then analyze, and we ask questions about, have you accessed the health center? If you have, what are your thoughts? We like to hear that. That's interesting information, but to be perfectly honest, the post-visit surveys give us the most timely information with regards to people who have accessed it. But we also ask, if you haven't accessed the health center, why? And then we also ask some really direct questions about services or operations with regards to Priority 1 to find out what people know and what they don't know. And then from there, we target marketing to that. So we are currently in the midst of a marketing plan where we roll out emails. We also have mailers that are going out. So we are doing targeted messaging to address places where there's a gap in knowledge or from a response rate, it appears that there's a gap in knowledge. So we're really trying to fill that. We also look at that data. Thankfully for you, there's very little, if any, situations where an individual says, I was seen in the health center and I'm not going back. We do ask that question, and then we ask why, to find out if there are course corrections that we need to make. We also look at if there are services that people would like to see in the health center. What are those services? And those become part of our strategic consideration plan. So we have a pretty robust approach, but I do think it would be interesting to find out if Marathon Health would have any ability to kind of uniquely target individuals who aren't accessing care anywhere.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, Mr. Stratton, do you have any questions for Ms. Eason or Dr. Schumacher? Or?
No questions, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Could you, I'm not sure who, remind me again, what are the nature of the coaching sessions?
So coaching is, in the Marathon Health model, coaching occurs during a provider visit. So if you kind of recall on our very first day of the health center, we had a health coach. That health coach ultimately became a nurse practitioner, and at that point, we made the determination that the provider hours based on the Marathon Health model made a lot more sense because Marathon Health embeds health coaching in every provider visit when appropriate. I'm going to say that because there are times where if I come in and I'm really ill, the last thing I want to do is talk about my blood pressure, and a clinician's going to respect that and respect where I am. But for the most part, when people come in, whether it's for an annual physical or an acute need, in addition to addressing the acute need, which they will do first, they also have the ability to review biometric data. So what's your current blood pressure? They're looking at your kind of your results. They're looking to see how often you're filling your medications, and they're spending, instead of spending 7 minutes with you, they're spending anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes up to an hour with you. And so they're using that time to, they utilize motivational interviewing, and they spend time trying to figure out, are there other things that are going on in your life that we could work on? And so the coaching is a component of the medical provider's visit. It's not a separate visit.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Appreciate that. All right, any other questions? All right, thank you so much, Ms.
Absolutely.
Eason, Dr. Schumacher, for this report. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, our next discussion item is 3.2, the COVID-19 response plan update. Dr. Hubbard.
Yeah, so you have two items attached. One is the CARES team report that was conducted a year ago with our CARES teams and just all the allocated needs. And I would just reiterate that in that report, there were millions of dollars of needs that we weren't able to address, and so they had to be prioritized. And we're very thankful for those elementary and middle school and high school teams that have prioritized those. We now have before us SR3 dollars, which Russell Knapp is going to share the difference between 1 and 2 and now 3 for us, and sort of different guidelines in regards to spending those, and a chart just kind of letting you guys know where we've landed on the allocation of SR3 and the application process. So Mr. Knapp, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Sheriff is going to pull that up for us.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you. Yes, so at the April 12th, 2021 board meeting, the CARES team presented to the board a plan on how the district was to allocate SR2 funds for the 21-22 school year. Included in that plan were recommendations to continue the plan if the districts were to get SR3 funds. Tonight we'll address the SR3 plan. And as Dr. Hubbard mentioned, the COVID-19 response plan that is attached to the board agenda, it's also out on our website under the ESSER funds. So this slide summarizes the various ESSER3 funds that we have received or have been awarded to date. So if you recall, we received $2.6 million in ESSER1 funds and an additional $1.2 million in Johnson County Sparks money. A lot of that expenditures were for PPE supplies, technology to pivot to remote learning, but also in there's close to $1 million that we used to purchase air filter machines and MERV 11 filters. So there's $1 million spent right out of the get-go on filtration systems. Then we were awarded another $10.6 million in SR2 funds. That's what we currently are spending in this fiscal year 21-22. That was what it was originally proposed by the CARES team back in April. A lot of that is for personnel and is already addressing the loss in instructional time and learning loss. So a lot of things in that plan address reducing class sizes, tutoring, the extra math teachers that was mentioned earlier. All the CARES teams, the elementary, middle, and high, they met, and a lot of those purchases were always to address learning loss. So fast forward to SR3. So that's what we're here to discuss tonight. We were awarded another $23.7 million in SR3 monies. Those have to be obligated by September 2024. We are allowed to submit multiple applications, so we don't have to go and ask for all $23 million at once. So tonight's plan, we decided to do the first half to address 22-23 school year. And then right now the tentative plan would be come back a year from now and ask for that second half and give you a plan for the 23-24. So it'd be a little more current, whatever the situation is at that time a year from now. So the allowable uses for SR3 essentially is the same as it was for SR1 and 2. As we mentioned earlier, they did require an additional use for it. 20% of that allocation has to address the impact of lost instructional time. As we just mentioned, SR2 plan pretty much addresses that. Almost, you probably could argue all of it addresses lost instructional time or addresses learning loss. And so SR3 plans will just continue that for the next 2 years. Another addition in the application itself is how are districts engaging their stakeholders on how they're going to use SR3 monies. So the district conducted a thought exchange in December 2021 to seek community feedback on how to allocate $2.3 million of unallocated money for SR3. So we had those results back, and David Stubblefield here is going to address the results of that survey.
I just want to real quickly say that that 2.3 million of uncommitted SR3 is for each year. So 2.3 in the 22-23 school year and 2.3 in the 23-24 school year, correct?
That is correct.
All right, so in all transparency, I am pinch hitting for the other David, Professor Smith, who is our in-house thought exchange guru. So here he is right here. If I mess up,
Mr.
David.
Smith, back from Topeka. Welcome back.
Appreciate you. If I mess up, you just step in at any time.
Pressure's on.
All right, I'm a little nervous. So thought exchange is, again, it's not your typical Likert scale survey or your binary choice survey that you get to take. This is a truly interactive and engaging survey that allows you to, for some free response, and more importantly, it allows you to engage with other people's thoughts that you can then rate. So I think we get some pretty good feedback from the thought exchange that we put out. This particular thought exchange for SR3 allocation, we had 2,088 participants that generated about 1,065 thoughts and over 45,000 ratings of those thoughts. We have the breakdown of the folks who were involved in this thought exchange. So parent, guardians, students, district employees, community members, we were required to get all of those get input and feedback from all of those different groups. Our largest was parent guardians, which comprised of 59% of those 2,088, and then district employees comprised the next largest amount, which was about 29%. So of those, of all of the combined thoughts put together of all the participants, these were the thoughts that rose to the top. The top one was money needs to go to the front lines, which includes our teachers, our paras, classroom staff support, materials, and additional teachers. Then smaller class sizes, continued reduction in class size, teacher paras, front office staff, custodians, and then our food service folks as well. And then again, teachers, teaching, our retention pay or increased teachers pay on that. So the top rated thoughts by each group, our parents and guardians said that they would like to see a reduction in class size as their top thought. Students, very appropriately, just based on our last conversation, felt like mental health should be a more of a priority for SR3. And then district employees and community members and other said that the retention payment or making sure that we get that money into our employees' hands was their top thought. All right, and here's the budget allocations that I'm going to have Russ go back over.
Yes, so you're probably familiar with this table. This is very similar to your SR2 table. And again, the application will go in for $11,871,503. It will address the 22-23 school year. One of the additional money, about $1.3 million over SR2, will be allocated to $796,000 for indoor air quality, and an additional 7 building subs, which would bring that line item up to $2,460,000. Everything else is consistent with SR2, except for maybe those 2 items. Everything else was in the SR2 plan and just brought forward. So that concludes the presentation on what we'll submit for SR3, and we'll stand for any questions.
Hold on, before we stand for questions, Professor Smith, how did I do?
Oh, you did. You were amazing.
Thank you. All right, we'll take questions.
Yeah,
now.
I might add too, I just want to note that the majority of this plan is for personnel, as you all can see here. The other thing too, in regards to elementary, middle, and high school CARES teams, just a reminder, that money is allocated from those teams of staff members, including really all walks, classified, certified, large social workers. There's an academic component, a SEL component, and then an other component that addresses some things in the summer and evenings and credit recovery and things like that. But these are the things that people that currently work in our buildings every single day with kids recommended. And so that's that money allocated directly into the classroom. So the majority of our plan, I am very proud to say, and Russ mentioned this, really does go towards, while only 20% had to go to learning recovery, the majority of ours, the largest majority of ours is dedicated to learning recovery.
Thank you. Thank you for that presentation and collecting this qualitative data from our community to help us make informed decisions. Okay, so I'm going to start with Ms. Hembry for questions, and then we'll keep working our way around.
Thank you. My driving question is just, I'm struck by the potential items down at the bottom that we don't have money for, which are PPE and supplies, COVID testing. I could throw in there sort of I know previous years we've operated our own contact tracing, and I know it's really hard to anticipate what this thing looks like a year from now or a week from now or any period of time from now, but did we consider hanging on to some money for some of those sort of hard direct costs that we would need for mitigation efforts, at-home tests, continuing to offer mod testing, those kinds of expenses?
So I would, there is the one line on nursing support. So we left that in. The nursing support is still in the plan up above. Most of our other items are being provided for us from other agencies, and I'm glad Dr. Ziegler's back. She can speak more eloquently to that. But so, for example, our mod testing is not costing us anything. That's coming through a grant. Just this week, we received 20,000 KN95 masks from the State Health Department. We've received a large number of other masks and sanitizers as donations from different groups. So right now, I would say those expenses are pretty well covered. Dr. Ziegler, is there anything you would want to add to that?
No, I think you covered everything fine.
Okay. Are you good? Is it good? Okay.
Yeah, no, I think it's good. I just would put out there, I'm just thinking, we don't know what the guidance is going to look like. We don't know what CDC is going to recommend for next school year, and I would be more surprised if we didn't have expenses related to mitigation. I think we will have expenses. It's just a question of what they'll look like. So just wanting to make sure we have a plan for if it does.
I think the other thing that I would add, while this plan doesn't have a lot of room for error or discretionary, really hardly any, but there's maybe a little bit in just a couple of places where we could always resubmit if we needed to and not spend as much on indoor air quality. Again, we don't have a lot of room for discretionary, but if we had to, that would be something that we could do, is resubmit the application. That is something we have and that's also why we're only submitting half now.
Thank you.
All right. Ms. Boyd-Nerona?
When compiling the information, some of the things that I thought about as we continue to possibly extract more data or input from students or what have from their stakeholders, were there particular populations we were looking to get input from? I see like 10% was only from students, 29% district employees. Was that a great factor that we considered? I'm not sure who I'm asking this to.
So they ask, there were no real specifics other than we had to ask the question from stakeholders. Now, there was a list of specific stakeholders that we needed input from, and we met every one of those categories through the thought exchange.
Okay. That's all I have right now. If I have more, I'll speak up. Thank you.
All right, so that takes us to,
Thank you, Dr. Sinclair.
Yep.
Yes. Borgman.
Yes.
Not him, breathe. Yeah. Or
Goodburn.
Yeah. Okay, so I was really interested to see the feedback from the students was mental health, which is not surprising to me. I just saw something recently that said that kids are dealing with a tsunami of mental health issues right now. And it looks like we have about $1 million, close to $1 million that's going to social workers and high school counselors. I know that we can't be all things to, students, but we're going to try to meet them where they're at and provide them the support that they need. And I am wondering, is this enough? Do we feel confident that the support, the money that we are putting towards the social workers and the counselors, do we feel confident that that's enough to meet their needs?
So I would add, and I can't get into specifics, but maybe some of my peers in the room can, that elementary, middle school, and high school cares team, all three of those have a social and emotional component. As a matter of fact, we recently approved Trauma Smart for some elementary schools and maybe a middle school, or just elementary?
Just elementary.
Okay, but all three of them also have social, so some of that money in those three areas have a social emotional component as well. Darren, can you speak to any more specifics on that?
The other thing I would add is that we're working on some curriculum around social emotional issues. It's not ready to roll. Our meeting last week was lost due to the pandemic, so we're going to take another run at it here pretty quickly. But there are other efforts going on besides what you see on this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Borgman. Ms. Owsley?
So I'm just going to ask some clarifying or lay out what I think is the timeline for this, just to make sure that I'm clear on it. And so maybe if someone else isn't clear, they can understand that if they're watching at home. So what we're looking at right now is the first year of the SR3 dollars, and then there's a subsequent year of the SR3 dollars. So while we're looking at an allocation of almost $12 million right now, then there's a subsequent year after that where we're going to be doing the same. We're going to be needing to retain these same positions.
If you'll look at the top of that chart, Ms. Owsley, there's that total award is $23 million up there. So you're absolutely correct. We just split that in half and only addressing half of the budget for 22-23. The other half will come back in a year for 23-24.
And that will go over in September, or we have to have that allocated by like September of 24. I mean, I'm just looking at the chart here. It says that, but
we have to have it. What's the word they use?
Obligated.
Obligated. There we go. It was almost the right word.
I know
I was
a
so
different
close.
word and it confuses us all. Obligated.
So we're going to be looking at keeping these same things. So we kind of know what we're going to do with that money or how we're going to obligate it. But when we're talking about $11 million out of that $23 or $24 million that we got from SR2, the other half of it is in the subsequent school year.
Correct.
And so then the really important part for all of us to remember is that so we're covered for 22-23 and then 23-24, but then in 24-25, this money goes away and we're not potentially able to continue to maintain these positions. So the 7 social workers, counselors, the smaller class sizes at the elementary level and the secondary math teachers, those things that we've identified as priorities, we've got those covered until, what did I say? Till 20
through 23-24. So for the 24-25, and you'll notice down at the bottom, the asterisk, there's an item that says these things will have to be, to keep, if we indeed are going to keep these items, they will have to be absorbed into the general fund for 24-25. And as you can see, that's millions of dollars. So it's going to be a very difficult decision as we get to that point.
About 12 billion.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I just want to make sure that we were all clear on that, and that because there's a lot flying around with regards to which portions are covering what. So I just wanted to make sure I had that clear. So thank you.
All right, Mr. Stratton.
I believe he had to exit us at 7 p.m.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. All right. My question was, I think it's kind of similar to Ms. Owsley's, but it's more in line with thinking about planning. So once we kind of learned that we would have SR2 and SR3 dollars, we essentially kind of built a 3-year plan. And this third round of the SR3 is asking for community input. So in a way, we kind of built a 3-year plan and allocated a significant portion to personnel and continuing some of these appointments. That was largely driven by, to some extent, to the strategic plan and the needs in relation to COVID. But would you say some of these positions kind of came from that original planning and strategic planning process?
Some came from that, but I would say it was mostly reiterated by the CARES teams as well.
Okay. All right. And then getting that feedback, can you tell me kind of in dollar amounts how much, so we continue to get community feedback through the thought exchange, and that, I'm just trying to get a sense if you're looking for feedback from us on approval for the plan. So there's another portion that there was some flexibility. Can you remind me again where there was like a 2 million or a little bit left in flexibility?
About 2.4. I think we asked the question around, can you go back, share us to the slide on thought exchange, the actual questions there, maybe?
2.3 uncommitted.
Yeah, we asked the question that approximately 2.3 was unallocated in ESSER dollars. And so how should that be spent? And based on the feedback that we received, and Sheriff, go back down to, if you would, keep going. Here, you saw the top rated thoughts were about giving a retention bonus, lowering class size, which some of those things were already in there. But then we looked at what other groups gave us. Again, reduced class size, mental health. And by the way, that student comment on mental health was around staff and students. It wasn't just for students. And then that retention payment. So we took that information, we went back to our original plan, and we said, what do we need to adjust? And we adjusted accordingly. The one thing that I'm really surprised we didn't see much of is the HVAC component. We didn't see much of that at all in the thought exchange, but we do, we know that based on the CARES report early on that that's very important. And as we mentioned earlier, we are spending a large amount of dollars in capital outlay as well as bond on HVAC, but we did think it was important to add some of that into here. So that's where the approximately $800,000 is there. And Sheriff, if you'll take me back to the overall chart, please. Other direction. There you go. That $796,000 we put towards indoor quality, and then a potential retention payment to be paid in September. We added those things based on the feedback we received from Thought Exchange.
Okay, so the part I just wanted to zoom in on is just looking at from our feedback from like parents and guardians. They really focused on reducing class size as a request. And I don't think there's anybody up here who would not want to do that, to reduce class size and be responsive to that. And looking at the chart, we did allocate a significant portion at the elementary level. You know?
I also think that some of the comments around that were to do it even more, to reduce it even more. So to reduce it even more would have completely taken that budget. But in addition to that, we have a concern in a large majority of our buildings of space, because reducing those numbers creates smaller sections, therefore needing more classrooms, and we already have many that are at capacity. So with this lower reduction, like some buildings would add one to every grade level based on this, and so when you start adding 7 or 8 sections to a building, it rapidly takes the space. So in many of our buildings, lowering that cap even smaller than what it is wouldn't have even been possible to do, in addition to the budget.
All right. So just it's not like a lack of interest or shared desire, but of financial constraints and
that, and I would,
facilities.
I mean, Dr. Dennis is much better at speaking to this, but there's also significant research that says unless you get to 15 or below, that lowering does not support academic achievement. I mean, it feels better. I'll be the first to admit, as a teacher, it feels a lot better, right? But the research does not support academic achievement to increase unless you get lower than, is it 15?
15 is correct.
Okay. Any additional questions? Ms. Good, you haven't had a chance yet. Okay.
I don't really have one. I was just going to say, I'm thankful for the money.
Sorry about that.
I'm thankful for this money, that we've been able to do some things that were on our wish list. I'm really thankful for it. Thankful for the plan that you've put together. It's been so detailed and what, 100-page report on, I believe, that we received in April. So I'm just really thankful for the money, and I'm thankful to see the retention payment potentially go back in here too.
Well, we will plan to submit in February based on this plan. Obviously, if we have to readjust midstream, we will do that, and we have the ability to do that as needed, and then we'll submit the second half next year around this time. But for now, we'll get that first round submitted in the next month or so.
Appreciate that. Okay, was there one final question?
I just wanted to thank you for drawing out the indoor air quality piece. I think one of the things when you put out a survey about like what people want to see in their classrooms is it's an odd duck who's going to come back and say they want to see a different kind of HEPA filter, right? So I think that's an important piece that can't get left behind, and there's loads and loads and loads of data about how important indoor air quality is for mitigating COVID-19, especially if you have students who are bad maskers or poorly enforced mask requirements. having our indoor air resemble outdoor air as much as possible is a really important thing we can do. So thank you for continuing to put that in this plan and find ways to bring that in through the capital outlay funding and through the bond. Even if we don't have a community that's, no one's rallying outside for MERV 13 filters. It just really surprises me, but I'm glad you put it in there anyway. Thank you.
All right, okay, so that brings us to the consent items, I believe. So 4.1, so unless there is a motion to remove any item from the consent agenda, I seek a motion to approve consent items 5.1 to 6.8.
So moved, Owsley.
Okay, second.
Second, Borgman.
Okay, thank you. All in favor to approve consent items, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes 6-0. We are down Mr. Stratton. Okay. All right, that brings us to action items 7.1, approval for Apple device refresh. So I will seek motions and then we move to discussion. Is that correct? I'm looking for my parliamentarians
So move,
here.
Borgman.
Thank you.
Second, Hembry.
All right, okay, so now we go to discussion, correct? Okay.
Just real quick, I would add that this is our second refresh since the initial MacBook purchase. And this particular refresh are MacBook devices for staff and high school students, as well as CTE labs for middle school and high school.
All right. Do we have, I'm going to start with Ms. Boyd-Noronha. Do we have any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I'd just like to point out that, and I was trying to find my notes, I can't find them, but in the write-up, I want to commend the district for noting that selling of over a feedback or cost back to the district of about $2 million for reselling of the refurbished items. A lot of times people don't recognize or realize how much of a kickback, I guess, sort of would be to a district as we're trying to find and allocate funds responsibly. So thank you for noting that.
Thank you for that. All right, Ms. Borgman? Leslie?
None.
Okay, Ms. Goodburn?
None.
All right, so, and Ms. Hembry. All right, so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes 6-0. Thank you. All right, that brings us to 7.2, approval of revised board policy JBC student admissions to withdraws from school. And this is a second reading. So I seek a motion to approve.
So move, Goodburn.
Okay, and a second?
So moved, Owsley, or second, Owsley.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Owsley. All right. Dr. Hubbard, or?
So this is, again, a second read before you. It was brought forth by the Policy Review Committee, and it is simply an update to reflect the CASHA statement around eligibility for students that transfer.
Ms. Borgman, Ms. Goodburn, did you want to add anything to that?
That's perfect.
Okay. All right, so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes 6-0 to approve policy JBC. All right, 7.3, approval of revised policy JDD, suspension and expulsion procedures, second reading. Do I have a motion?
I'll move, Goodburn.
All right, second.
Second, Owsley.
All right, thank you. Dr. Hubbard, any comments here?
I don't. Again, just a second read. This is really cleaning up of language.
Okay. Goodburn, you want to add?
And the KSB model policy.
Okay, any questions? I'm going to look up and down the dais. Okay. All approve, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Oppose? Okay, motion passes 6-0. All right, 7.4, approval of revised board policy JCD, student discipline, second reading. Dr. Hubbard.
Again, recommendation of deleting this policy.
Oh, wait, we got to.
So
Motion
move,
it.
Borgman.
Second, Owsley.
Thank you.
Yeah, there you go.
Skipped a step.
Go for it.
Okay, so recommendation to delete this policy. It's not a KASB policy, and it's not necessary with the adoption of JDD.
Ms. Goodburn, do you want to add?
No, perfect.
Okay, so this is, I do have a question. So this policy is redundant now, given the changes to other
The one
policy.
above it, correct,
Okay.
JDD.
All right, any other questions? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nay? Okay, motion passes 6-0. 7.05, approval of revised board policy JCDA, student conduct, second reading.
Goodburn, approval.
Second, Borgman?
Thank you. Okay, Dr. Hubbard?
And again, this change is a second read. It just brings the policy in line with the KASB model policy.
All right, anything to add? Any questions? Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion passes to approve policy JCDA 6-0. We're on 7.06, approval of revised policy IDACA, special education actions and due process for students, second reading. Do I have a motion?
Goodburn.
Thank you. A second?
Hembry?
Thank you. Dr. Hubbard?
Again, also a second read here in regards to special education and due process for students. We need to update this for statutory references and bring in line with KASB.
All right. Anybody have anything to add or any questions? Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nay? Opposed? All right. Seeing none, motion passes 6-0, approval for IDACA. Added an extra A there. All right. 7.7, approval of updated second semester COVID mitigation measures. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve, Borgman?
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Hembry?
All right. Thank you, Ms. Hembry. Dr. Hubbard?
So as of last week, the state and county health departments announced they would be suspending contact tracing for 30 days. The 3% threshold we had built into our plan only works well when we are able to account for identified quarantines by the county health department. The school district does not have legal authority to contact trace or quarantine, and as a result of that, we are recommending universal masking through February 15th, 2022, due to the extremely high numbers of infection in the county and the uptick of cases in our schools. We will continue to monitor and either return to our 3% threshold on the 15th, assuming the county has resumed, or recommend another extension. To say it is disappointing that once again local school boards and school administrators are left to make decisions that should be made by county and public health officials would be an understatement. As a reminder, it is our number one priority to keep students and staff in school safely, and at this point, with the case numbers where they are, we believe it will take universal masking to do so. So we are asking for approval of the updated mitigation plan through February the 15th.
I'm going to look for questions, and I'm going to go down the line. Ms. Borgman, do you have any questions?
Are we the only district that is going to be following said policy?
For universal masking?
Yeah.
Yes, I believe we are the only district that would have universal masking. However, the other districts have a variety of ways of looking at their threshold, which include attendance. And so we looked at that and had those conversations. We could have done that. I believe the majority of them will remain masked due to the attendance factor that they have built in, as well as their threshold. We really felt like our 3% was a solid plan and was working for us prior to the contact tracing, so we didn't want to change our route. It's just, it doesn't work with the missing data of quarantines. And so because we don't have the authority to quarantine legally as a school district, we just felt like until that piece is back, we're either going to have to continue to mask with the rates that they are, or we're going to have to look at a different goalpost, if you will, of how to measure that.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Ousley?
I'll just note we have a board meeting it's on February 14th, on Valentine's Day?
Unfortunately, it is. And the day after the Super Bowl, I might add.
Well, I do enjoy spending time with you guys. All right, so I'm just noting that we have a meeting on the 14th, so while this is till the 15th, we will be here for discussions that night before. So we're not looking at a gap period.
No, and we purposefully used the 15th so that we could discuss it on the 14th, either with a new recommendation for you of an extension or to go back to our 3%. And so we thought it would give us the 15th the ability to communicate, and then whatever we determined would go back into effect on the 16th when students returned.
And then just out of curiosity, has JCDHE given any indication of when their rates will be at a point where they will be able to pick back up with their tracing? Or is that something that they're just so overwhelmed right now they can't even project as to what that would look like?
Their
when?
original statement said they were suspending for 30 days. This would be about 30 days because that was a week before, and we have a 3-week gap before that February 14th meeting. So we're hopeful that either they will continue or we'll at least know at that point. And also just monitoring numbers every day in the district as well as the county.
Thank you.
Okay, so I just want to reiterate that the underlying policy remains the same, kind of, but those, and that's kind of what the faded gray is, those that we can't really implement until we have that metric back. And in the interim, given the high community, well, the interim is the mask requirement for the.
That is correct. Everything that is grayed is not going away, just temporarily suspended, and universal masking in its place until
we can have that metric back.
That's
that
correct.
allows us to. Okay, thank you. Ms. Goodburn?
I was going to say is we aren't the only district in Kansas City, though. If you're Johnson County, that would be correct. But I've been noticing on the news and stuff, I do pay attention to Missouri occasionally too. So there are other districts that have gone back to universal masking in the Kansas City area, and I know that we don't live in a vacuum in Johnson County. So
that is correct, including Wyandotte County.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Ms. Hembry?
I was just interested if Test to Stay will be coming back online anytime soon.
Say that again?
Spoken like a mother, what the status is of Test to Stay, if we'll be able to begin offering that anytime soon.
Well, right now there would be no Test to Stay because there is no quarantine.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Boyd-Norena?
And most of the questions or concerns have already been answered. I do not have any specific questions at this time.
Okay. Anything else?
So a couple things I want to add in regards to quarantine. Just a reminder, we do still have recommendations from the county on our district website. And when asked, we will direct people to that website so they can see what the county would typically be recommending. And so we have that piece. And then also, this is just an opportunity to do a huge shout out to our nursing team that have spent hours and hours and hours working to make sure we're at that 3% up until that changed. But even still, just managing positive cases throughout the district and providing resources to our families. And I'm not going to stop there because this mitigation plan has created just the whole pandemic for all of our staff, teachers, food service, transportation. And I'm not going to name everyone because I'll miss someone, but ultimately everybody, including your seats and every seat in this district. And it takes all of us. It takes the old saying of it takes a village. It absolutely takes a village right now. And we have people at the district office that are serving meals to kids. We have people at the district office substituting in buildings. People are doing jobs that they never thought they would be doing. And I'm just so appreciative of the people that say, I'll roll up my sleeves and do what I have to do to get it done. And so I'm thankful for all those people throughout the district and just the opportunity to say that in regards to this mitigation plan.
All right. Thank you. So, yes?
I will say, too, that I've noticed a little bit on social media that parents are really stepping up, too, and noticing all the extra efforts that are going on in the schools and providing, in some cases, some meals and doing things for the staff that, this little kindness packet, too. I mean, just doing things from the staff because the parents are and the communities are realizing the extra effort everyone's going to try to keep kids in school.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Can we take a vote? All right. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Motion passes 6-0. All right. That brings us to board comments, 8.1. And I believe in my rotation, I will start with Ms. Owsley is up next.
I just wanted to thank Mr. Smith for going to Topeka today. It is appreciated. I can't wait to find it on the YouTube. I haven't had a chance to watch it today, so thank you.
It's always my privilege to represent this board.
All right, Ms. Goodburn.
I just wanted to say quick thanks to Principal Dave Ewers for providing the board with our new Bison swag.
All right, Ms. Hembry.
I would just echo Dr. Hubbard's thank you to so many staff who've been really giving it their all. My son's elementary school nurse was out with COVID, and our front desk lady, I was just sharing, she stepped in and became Nurse Shireen North, and she did an incredible job. And I'm incredibly grateful. I see in my own life every day how many people are stepping up for our kids, and I'm incredibly grateful.
Thank you. Ms. Boyd-Norona?
Just to continue with the sentiment, yes, all hands are on deck. I think that the challenging mindset that we all are in, whether we're parents or whatever level of stakeholder-ish that we are in, stakeholder responsibility that you uphold. So I'll end on that note. All hands are still on deck, but that is not necessarily a bad thing.
Great. Thank you. All right, Ms. Borgman.
Yeah, I'm going to ditto all of the thank you. So much gratitude. Thank you to Dr. Hubbard for really having the foresight of spending our ESSER dollars wisely to up some substitute teacher pay on Mondays and Fridays, because that has really filled a gap that we've needed. So wonderful forethought to you and your staff. And, you know, I'm sort of in the place of pandemic where I'm tired of complaining about everything. And so I'm really challenging myself that instead of looking at something from a negative perspective, really trying to flip the script in my head, and seeing these great kindness challenge little goodie bags from Jill Chalfie, who is so amazing in our community, just is kind of reiterates that. And so, you know, I would challenge the board, I would challenge administration, anyone out there listening, really to flip the script in your head, right? And when you look at something negative, like try to change that into a positive and do something nice for somebody, whether it's your neighbor, whether it's a teacher, a para, superintendent, whomever, you know, just try to go the extra mile this week, especially with the Great Kindness Challenge. So, and great job, Dr. Sinclair, on your first full meeting.
All right, thank you for the team effort and support. Thank you, Sheriff, for stepping in. And I think I believe that concludes our meeting. The board meets next February 14th for a workshop. So, meeting adjourned. Thank you.